I know, but wasn't it the same that he did to Sergio with the big fuck you, big fuck you? Yeah, but the thing is, not me. Stop talking or start talking?
Hello again. For those of you that were just looking at the the video, I forgot to activate the microphones. So hello everyone and welcome to the Bump Draft and Pray podcast. I am your host Pedro Barbosa, and with me I have Earl. Hello again, Earl.
Hello.
And we're here to talk about again the lunacy of this weekend. Because it was a bit unusual, let's say it like that.
Well, it was another sprint weekend to get our heads into, whether there's a lot of context for people. Some like it, some don't like the sprint format. And then, like I say, Brazil always brings out some good racing.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, 3 races this year and 6 races next year. The format of the weekend is a little bit different. Instead of having FP1 and FP2 on Friday, then FP3 and quali on Saturday and the race on the Sunday, we had FP1 and quali on Friday, then FP2 and sprint race on Saturday, and then the race on Sunday. That was a change that F1 brought out 2 years ago. Now it's the second year of sprint races.
Trialed them last year.
Yeah, tried on last year, and last year were the sprint was Silverstone.
Silverstone was the first one, and then I think they were Monza,
and
I'm not sure where the last one was.
Neither do I. Wasn't it one of the Austria races? Was the Styria Grand Prix or the Austrian Grand Prix? One of the two.
Could well have been, can't remember.
Yeah, it was at the ring, at the old A1 ring that now it's called Red Bull Ring. Yeah, for those of you that are old enough to remember the name A1 ring. I certainly am.
Yes, not all old like you.
Yeah. But it was a very, like in São Paulo, which is the city where Interlagos circuit is. Actually, it was not the Brazilian Grand Prix. It was the São Paulo Grand Prix. At least I saw on the official. I'm not sure why, because the previous president, because they have a new one, was so eager to get the Grand Prix out of there and into Brasilia, which is the actual capital of Brazil, or where the power is let's forget politics. It's done now. Let's not do that. Let's not do politics, or we'll be here discussing a lot of time. But so we had quali on Friday. We're just going to talk just a little bit about it because it was kind of interesting. We had mixed conditions the whole of qualifying. Track was a bit dampish and getting drier, and then the rain was coming, but there was a little bit of doubt on when the rain was coming, and one team, I don't know if you guys can guess, but one team got it completely wrong with one of their cars. Which team might that be?
I could see why they did it, but I mean, let's be honest, they've got some of the most advanced weather radars around and tracking with the amount of money they have. All the teams, when they say rain's going to be coming in 5 minutes, they're generally spot on that within around 5 minutes it rains. For what happened with Charles, and for that to work, they needed it to rain in 60 seconds. They needed to go into the pit lane. It had to rain. Enough time for him to get a lap in before anyone else could come in and change. And it was never going to happen.
But that's the thing. The thing that I don't really understand that it is because it had to rain a lot more than eventually did for it to even make sense, because there's 10 minutes and you had time. Even if it rained 60 seconds when the last qualifying started, drivers would have time to come in and get a set of inters and do a lap. So I think they were banking on the fact of him being able to put in a lap as the rain is progressing faster than anyone else could on the slicks. And then by the time they came to go into, the track was slower because of more rain. So they were, it was a perfect window it needed to be for it to work. And the fact that, like I say, it needed to be literally drive out and start raining as they went, so that he had enough time to bang a lap in before it got too wet and slower, so no one else could beat him. So, yeah. I can see the logic, but it's flawed, because anyone there could have looked at and gone, we're good for 2 minutes. And that's all it took. It's like a minute and a half, and it's like, this won't work. We're wasting it. The best thing they could have done is they could have got Charles to stick his hand out and pretend like he stalled the car, and they could have rolled him back in the pits and changed tyres instead of driving around. But the problem is that they can actually start the car now, I think.
Yeah, I know.
That's out of the window.
I was being facetious.
So yeah, in the old days, and they still turn on the car with the starter, the outboard starter motor, which is basically a motor thing. Then they just input the shaft out of the back of the car and turn the engine round.
That'll also just be saving battery and not keep using stuff on board.
Yeah, and because now with the electric motors, they can turn the engine over. Yeah, and there's actually some good talks, and I actually don't know why they don't do this, but why still put a reverse gear in the gearbox and not just use the electrical motor?
It will probably be in the technical regs that the car will have to have forward and reverse. It'll be something like that. It'll be a fine line in the regs. So that's why they've all got it.
Yeah.
And then the other one is, if you have an electrical issue, but you can still run, you can't use...
How many times have you seen someone putting reverse without having the hybrid system? Yeah, I don't know. It makes sense.
I would say it's a reg thing.
Yeah. But it makes sense even in a, let's say, I don't know, just to say, like they do with WRC, that you have to use the electrical system to go between stages. It's just like an eco thing. So they could actually use that and use more of that stuff.
Maybe they will in the future.
Yeah, it's a good idea, actually. Basically Ferrari put the inters on Charles' cars and not on Carlos' car. I have to say their last names because it's confusing. But yeah, so everyone got out on slicks, and it was actually the best thing to do. And there were two drivers that did a good qualifying in all of the sessions, and that's true in the last session as well, which was Lando Norris was able to put the car where I think it shouldn't really, because their car was not that good on Interlagos the whole weekend.
Probably a couple of spaces higher than he should have been.
Yeah, and the guy that actually did an amazing lap the first timed lap was Magnussen. He actually put it on P1, just in front of Max. So when the following happened, which was Russell, he clipped a little bit of the grass. He did a Carl Lewis kind of braking zone. I hope he sees this.
We're going to show him it. Timestamp it. He touched the white line. You know, he went just over the white line, touched the grass under braking with the right rear, and that was it. He was not going around the corner.
Yeah, and it was. I mean, some people have been like slamming on him for what happened, but I actually think it was not that bad, because the mistake can happen to anyone, but how he got stuck was a little bit awkward. But with the water that was there, and it was very wet there because there's no cars going around there, so it's going to be very slippery, and he was trying to get past the gravel trap and onto the tarmac escape road, and then once he got there and he turned so that it wouldn't hit the wall that was there, he just slid, and the car did a 180 or almost a 360 and got stuck on the gravel.
Yeah, he said he tried to spin it around to keep it out the gravel, and like you say, it was obviously the surface wasn't anything he'd been used to that with the car, and he went a bit too far and it dropped in the gravel, and that was his quali over.
Yeah, and that actually brought out a red flag, which basically meant that we actually had when the red flag came out, we had Magnussen on pole, and because they took a little bit of time to get the car out, the Mercedes out of the gravel trap, when quali resumed, it was basically too wet to do a better lap. I mean, Sergio came out to see how the grip was, but that's just because he was 8th.
Yeah, Lewis came out as well just to do a lap, and
probably
just the fans.
For his counterpart, he's with his new citizenship.
Exactly, yeah.
So, yeah, Sergio was actually 9th on quali, so I got that wrong. So, yeah, because it didn't really do a proper lap. It did a 15.6. Oh, because it was stuck behind Leclerc. Yeah, I know now. I remember now. It was stuck behind Leclerc when they started the lap. And actually, some people were saying that maybe Leclerc did it on purpose to try and mess his qualifying. But I'm not sure about that. I think Leclerc just wanted to try and do something.
Yeah. I don't think there's any malice there.
No, neither do I. So, yeah, we had the first Dane on pole position, and we haven't had a American team. The first pole for Haas, and on Gene Haas' birthday, which was nice, a nice birthday present, and the first American team pole position since 74, 75, which was Wolf Racing, I think, the last one.
Wolf. It was in the early 70s.
Yeah, so nice. It was actually a good story of qualifying.
It was good, and it was a merited performance because, as Martin Brundle said on the British commentary, there were 10 drivers. Well, let's exclude Charles because he was on the wrong tyres. But there were 9 drivers on track, all at the same time, same conditions, trying to put a lap in. So it's not that Haas lucked in or anything. They just did a better lap than everyone else.
Yeah, we've just been corrected. It was Shadow. I don't know. Thank you. So yeah, it was. Yeah, he did a very nice job. Very nice job. Very nice job. It was mega qualifying from Kevin anyway. So yeah, so for the sprint race, it was the top three were basically Magnussen, Verstappen, and Russell, which actually did a good first run on qualifying, and I had a good qualifying in general, and both Alpines on the top 10 as well. So that was
they
good
were quick
news.
all weekend.
Yeah, very quick. But we're going to talk about them just now because we're going to go to the sprint race. Yeah, and the sprint race was, let's say, interesting from lap 1. And basically with a scrap between both Alpines. I have to get some sort of sound to assort blame or something like that, just to ask some sort of bumper. We have to start adding all that stuff to the podcast to make it less we talking. But yeah, and sorry to Pinto who is listening to us, because I know is a Alpine fan. But yeah, let's talk about that. They started P7, P6 and P7, Ocon and then Alonso, and on turn 4 of the first lap, it's the left-hander where
after the straight,
after the second straight, basically the first straight, because yeah, and it was where Max and Hamilton had all of that trouble, let's say, last year, where Max forced Hamilton off track, and basically Ocon was on the inside and Alonso was on the outside, and Ocon just squeezed Alonso in on top of the outside curve, and he lost the back end of the car and hit Ocon on his right side. How do you see that incident? Let's call it racing incident.
Harsh from Ocon, because lap 1 of the race, you're not pushed, especially a sprint race. You've got all the big work to come tomorrow. You don't, and they're in the top 10. You don't push your teammate off the track. It's just not because it's Alonso, and it's just any reason you give him some racing room. But yeah, so I think he was a bit. I mean, he knew Alonso was going to come down the outside there. We all did. He left the space, but then to push him off, I think it was a bit harsh.
Yeah, that's the main thing that I don't get about and we were going to talk about this on the race, because there were some incidents there as well. But yeah, why do we have rules about being what's considered being alongside, and then when we have drivers being alongside, you can just squeeze them out? I don't really understand that, because he was alongside.
And I think Brundle's favourite phrase at the moment was he's earned racing room. He's got far enough alongside that he's earned the room, and you should give him a car's width. And yeah, there's a difference between going, car's width, he's there. Oh, but I've got understeer. Yeah, you could get away with that in old days if I've picked up understeer, but in this modern day and age, you can't. You've got to get out the throttle. You can't go, I've got understeer, sorry.
Yeah, the only way to get understeer, because he was alongside him early enough for him to just keep the foot out of the throttle and, let's say, throttle up a little bit later, and he wouldn't have squeezed him that much. So yeah.
But then he's a young'un trying to prove that he's worthy of staying there, and these, against the old master. So there's a little bit of And let's not be honest, we don't know what's going on behind. There's obviously issues with them too behind the garage door. So how much of that is coming out in his driving because he can't say anything in public?
And the other thing is, if this is happening with Alonso, how is it going to be next year with Gasly?
It's just, that's going to be.
Oh man.
Yeah, that's going to be scary.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a heaven or hell situation. They're either going to click and be great teammates and be awesome for the team and have really good results, or it's going to be Senna Prost and just be chaos.
Yeah, Senna Prost, but more in the midfield.
Well, yeah.
yeah. So they went from there, and on the end of that lap, on the straight not straight, like I called it last podcast, and I'm going to apologize right now for not, like I put last week's podcast, it was yesterday, because I had some family problems and I couldn't really upload it, or I forgot to upload it basically. And then when I remembered it, the site didn't work. So I only uploaded yesterday. So
don't say anything. Shh.
No, I have to apologize. I have to apologize. So yeah, in the end of that lap on the straight not straight, that is the last straight of São Paulo, Alonso was on the draft, still not on the DRS because the DRS wasn't yet out. It wasn't, they couldn't use it. He went for the draft, and the classic draft and pull out and overtake, and let's say timed it a little bit late and hit with his front wing the tire of Ocon and basically lost his front wing on that. He complained about it being Ocon moving. Did you see any movement from Ocon's car?
Not there. Nothing like Stroll-esque in the USA. So I don't know. It's one of those where it's more than likely it's Fernando's fault, but he's obviously not going to say that. He's going to, which is something that we can have a rant about another day, which is starting to wind me up, is the drivers calling out the other drivers with like track cuts, and it's just stop being a little girl. I mean, I was going to use some really bad language there. It just sit there and quick rant, but a sport that is billions of dollars are in this industry and some of the most high-tech equipment ever. They know track cuts. They can police track cuts because they do. They don't need Lewis Hamilton saying, "Oh, he's gone wide at turn 4." They don't need it. It's not your job, Lewis, or whoever. They all do it. It's not your job. And I think they need to implement some form of ban. Make it a harsh one. Tell you that if a driver's heard saying something like that and question it, they get a fine or a ban or something, points on. They need to stop it because I think it's detracting from the sport.
Yeah, there's one quick fix on that. Just turn around to Liberty and say you're not going to because we have a delay. We don't hear driver radio live. There's actually, they pick whatever they want. And they just.
But I'm saying it's not the case that they shouldn't play it. I'm saying the drivers shouldn't be allowed to do it.
Yeah, I got it. But the quick fix for now would be just to turn to Liberty Media and say, just stop that.
Make a rule, say you're not allowed to. Make a rule, you're not allowed to. There's the quick fix. Not allowed to.
Question.
Or you get a 5-second penalty. I guarantee you none of them will do it.
Yeah.
There, fix.
Yeah.
Fix in one line of code. Done.
Yeah. And there's actually a argument to let's say, iRacing it, which you have off tracks and all that stuff, and that's actually very easy to implement these days. And if you are not allowed to go for wheels off the line, if that's a rule, and we should, like, I think many of us think that you shouldn't give different rules for different corners on how much you can go offline, because that's just stupid. If you have simple white lines on the track, just stick to them.
It's simple. For the money it takes, if the track doesn't have a solid white line around the entire circuit, they paint one. It's not hard.
But I think it's mandatory, isn't it?
Exactly. But what I'm saying is, if it wasn't, it's just paint the lines, and the rule is all four wheels off the line, over the line. That's it.
Yeah.
Penalty. It's not difficult.
No.
Like you say, by going, but at turn 4 you can go wide. Why?
No.
Because, as I say, you see it in real life, you see it in esports. If a driver's given an inch, they'll take a mile.
Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They may say what they might say is you gain no time there if you go a little bit wide. But then if you don't gain, if you go a little bit wide, some driver is going to go a lot wider and just, and then it leaves it to the steward's discretion. And if you have technology to just stop that and being really clear what you can and cannot do, and the penalized, like, there's actually, it's very easy to implement they might actually have that in place right now. We just don't have access to it, which is track cuts, and it appears instantaneously on their radar. And
I'm sure they do.
Just make that
they just
automatic.
Don't play it out. But it's quite simple, where it's a white line. It's done. It's fixed. Don't go over it. And as soon as you put it in black and white, nice big bold letters, it's done. And then anyone that goes over it, but he pushed me. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. I agree.
Rant over.
No, but I agree. And the only caveat about what I just said, make it automatic, is because, as we're going to discuss later, the FIA's automatic stuff doesn't really work all the time because we had a problem on the safety car. But let's talk about that when we get there, because it was, I think it was glossed over, that part, but I'm going to rant about that later. Then it was about the time where we're just seeing how much time it took for Verstappen to overtake Magnussen, and it was pretty instant. It was lap 2, I think. It didn't overtake instantly because Russell, he was under pressure by Russell behind, and the Mercedes were very fast this weekend.
Yeah, well, they unlocked something, that's for sure.
Yeah, because it's not just the thinner. I think the thinner helps them, because I think it's no secret that the Mercedes is quite draggy, and the thinner the air is, the less that like it brings it down a little bit, because there's less air to drag the car.
Yeah,
but Mexico, they found
something.
something, because Mexico is even thinner air, and I still think that Red Bulls were way faster than Mercedes in Mexico. But this weekend was, I think
the car looked good from the start. Like we said, hit the ground running, even from practice in the wet. They just looked almost Red Bull-esque on rails. They looked solid.
Yeah.
So I sort of was expecting and hoping for a good weekend from them, just to try and liven it up a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, it was actually good, because Max passed Magnussen, then basically everyone passed him from the top cars. And even Lando passed him. Lando did a great race. I think I even said to you this on Saturday. There were two drivers that impressed me on Saturday, which were Russell, and we're going to talk about that, and Lando. Lando would managed the race perfectly. He led the cars that he knew were faster than him, and then he conserved his tires because he had the softs, and then when Magnussen was passed by all of the cars, he just went and passed Magnussen like it was nothing. So it just managed the tire life of those tires perfectly, with not a competitive car. I think the McLaren was.
I think also managed himself because he's obviously not well through the week. So I think there's a little bit of just managing himself, knowing that he's got to do a 72 lap race the next day. There's no point going 100% sprint race because save it for tomorrow.
And he didn't actually went to the media pen after the sprint race because he was exhausted. He was not well. So then we had Russell behind Max. Max was on the medium tires. Everyone else was on the soft tires. And Russell actually passed Verstappen. It was like 3 or 4 laps behind him and trying different stuff, and then instead of trying to pass him in turn 1 like it did the previous laps, he just stayed behind him, got out of T2 very nicely, the whole T1, T2, T3 complex, and then Max had no answer for him, and he passed him and just went away. It was crazy. It looked very straightforward. I know it was not, but it looked very straightforward. So how impressed were you on Saturday with George?
Yeah, he drove I wouldn't say perfect race, but he did what he needed to do. I think that first couple of laps with Verstappen, he kept putting him to the outside, the left-hander at the end of the straight, and making him go to the outside. I think Max obviously using his battery as well just to keep ahead of the DRS bit. And like you say, it just took a couple of laps for whether Max didn't have any battery left for that particular lap and George had saved his battery, but he just had enough to get ahead of him before the braking zone, and that was it. Once he got in front and got clean air, it proved how good the car was this weekend and also how well George has been driving all year. And I think he pulled about 1.3, 1.4 gap and just stayed out of DRS zone and did his thing.
Yeah, it didn't have to do that for much time because Max was actually being pressured from behind by Carlos. And Carlos was able to do it on T1 and went on the inside and then had much more grip than Max. Him on the medium times, the medium were slower and apparently wear out a lot faster. I haven't heard a single explanation about that because it was actually the same thing on the next day. Like it looked like the medium was.
Seemed to be something wrong. I mean, I know Red Bull claimed that it was thought that the softs will drop off before the end of the race, so I think they went on the having grip at the end of the race. But for whatever reason, it was cooler again, and they didn't fire up at all, and everyone else managed to make the softs work long enough at pace. So it's again one of those tyre companies just not saying anything because they don't want to talk about it. But yeah, it was strange that he took it and no one else did.
Yeah, my question to you now, because I don't have any real experience on tires and softs and mediums and all that stuff, but can it happen that you're not able to fire up a harder compound tire, and just because you're trying to take something away from the tire and trying to get hit on them, and you're not able, can it wear the tires faster? Because it kind of seemed like that.
Yeah, you can get a thing in some tire brands. Obviously, everything's different, but called cold tearing. So it is. They used to have it in F1, where if you go too soon, and with these tires, from what I understand, they've obviously got such a crucial win. If you look back to previous years of them doing out laps where they were barely doing 50 mile an hour because you just couldn't take anything out of the tyre or put any, because once the heat cycle was in, it was such a quick heat cycle. Whereas traditionally, the harder the tyre, the longer it takes to come in. So where you would have 1-2 warm-up laps and a flight, and then the tyres would be ready, you might have 3-4 warm-up laps, then the tyre would be ready. And so on until you get to the hard tyre where you might be driving for 5 or 6 laps. And this is talking like in a race condition, so pit stop, new set of tyres. It could take 5-6 laps before the tyre gets enough core temperature in it through brake heat, transmission, and just all the action of driving and the physics involved there. But if you never get to go fast enough to generate that heat and core temperature, because it's not giving you the grip because it isn't at core temperature, so then you end up, they say, it's almost sliding as opposed to, and because it's sliding you don't go fast, so you just lose all pace, all grip, all round, and there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, I actually drove on the simulator Interlagos a lot this week because it was the F3 there in iRacing, and I don't know if it can actually, that might have something that might have even took it a little bit out of proportion. It's because there's a lot of medium speed corners in Interlagos that are a little bit off camber, and you lift up the inside of the car a little bit from the ground, so you get a lot of that, your inside front tire just being lifted off the ground, so and you can actually feel it even in the sim. You can feel it and see the tire, like the rest of the tires working, and that just being lifted there, so it's not generating any hit. So I don't know, and it's like just like stopped and scraping on the ground basically. So yeah, it's a weird and marvelous track at the same time.
It's one of those things where this particular batch of yellow compound mediums that the tyre company bought have got a defect in them, and there's something in the curing process hasn't gone right, and that's why no one used the mediums, because they were shit all round.
Yeah.
But it's again, and until Pirelli come out and go, oops, we had an issue, they're not going to say anything. It'll just be left to, they just weren't firing up. We expected it to be hotter than it was, and the usual sound bites.
Yeah, but it's like almost what we had in Mexico, which we actually said on the podcast that they should have brought softer tires. So yeah, maybe here, if they have brought stepped one compound to softer, maybe it would have been better, because the softs seem to last forever.
Softs acted like a medium.
Yeah. So yeah.
But then is this them learning the new tire sizes and all that stuff? Are they now tweaking that for next year?
Yeah,
with their compounds in the tire tests, most likely.
Yeah, there's going to be an actual learning curve on the new sizes. Yeah.
Because what we all want is, we want to know that a set of softs is going to last, example, 10 laps. A set of mediums is going to last 15 laps. And a set of hards is going to last 25 laps. And you know that when you get to, on the softs, you get to lap 11, they're shot, they're kaput, they're finished. So if you're the Mercedes that looks after its tyres well, you might get 11 laps and it dies on the 12th. if you're someone that uses the tyres more aggressively, you might get 9 laps and it dies on the 10th. But you don't want the situation where Vettel runs 54 laps on a set of softs.
Yeah.
Because then, yes, the tyre windows will be small and the strategy will be compromised to a degree, but you can't go into a race going, right, so it's going to go soft, medium, soft, and then someone runs a set of softs for the whole race. Well, what's the point in having different compound tyres? They just give them one compound, in my opinion.
Yeah. You might have everyone Alboning it like it did in Australia this year. So, yeah, it was weird. Yeah. Very weird. So, yeah, then Carlos passed Max, and Max got a front wing damage because of that. I think that's almost the definition of a racing incident, don't you think?
Yeah.
It was just a little bit, just the smallest of touches. It's hard with these cars since 2009 when they got the bigger front wings, the wider front wings. It's always been a little bit of a struggle to find that space, because they are quite big even to the front and very wide. So the smallest of errors can cause that. It was actually a small thing, and Max didn't complain about it. So it's just one of those racing incidents. So George won his first race, not Grand Prix, but first F1 race. His first sprint race. And then we had Carlos, Lewis, Max, Sergio Perez, Charles Leclerc, Lando Norris in 7th, Kevin Magnussen in 8th, Sebastian Vettel in 9th. Actually, a very good race from him as well, because the Astons were nowhere in qualifying. And Gasly P10. And this year, on the sprint race, it's 10 points to the first, and then all the way down to 10th place with 1 point. So last year was just first, second, and third that got 3, 2, and 1 points. So yeah, we went into the race, and both Alpines were out of the points. Ocon's car caught fire in the end of the race. He had a hole the size of Alonso's right-left wheel for that contact. So yeah, Lando digged a little bit, though, clawed that championship difference from Alpine to McLaren a little bit on that occasion. And Carlos had a grid penalty for the race, so he started 7th instead of starting 2nd. So we had our first front row lockout from Mercedes on a race, which was nice. We didn't know if that was going to happen, because there were some rumors that Lewis might actually take some new parts and have to start. And also it was
under investigation for grid infringements, which turns out the FIA didn't make the grids big enough.
Let's just say that the FIA screwed up a little bit this weekend. A little bit. Just a bit. So yeah, and now to the part where I have notes. So we started the race. Basically everyone was on softs apart from the Ferraris, which started on mediums. The both Haas started on mediums. Alonso started on mediums, and both Williams started on mediums. And actually one of them was the only one to put a set of hard tires for the race. I don't know where they had what they thought that would be a good idea. But it was on Latifi's car anyway, so sorry, Latifi fans. No, it was to try something to go to the end.
Yeah, surely, yeah.
Yeah, you have to try something. Actually, George and Norris got a good start. George in P1, and Norris a little bit behind, and Norris actually passed a few cars and then lost a few places. But in lap 1 on turn 7, we had a collision between Ricciardo and Magnussen until to the right-hander in the middle of the track to Pinheirinho, if I'm not mistaken, is the name of that corner. I don't know. I would have to go in. I'm bad with corner names. But yeah, well, they collided. It was an unusual
100% Ricciardo's fault.
100% Ricciardo's fault.
Yeah.
My only question would be what happened right after that, and what brought the safety car out was Ricciardo, after the hit, went on the right side and tried to pass Magnussen on the right side, and Magnussen was coming basically backwards and hit Ricciardo while he was passing. Should have Magnussen just hold his brakes there.
They spoke about this on the UK coverage, and they agreed the reason he didn't hold the brakes is because he had the entire pack coming behind him and he was in the middle of the track, whereby not holding the brakes, he was at least rolling out of the way of the entire pack. Obviously, Daniel wouldn't have been where he was if he hadn't have hit him. So, yeah, I think he did the right thing to get out the way, because if he had just stopped in the middle of the track, yes, Ricciardo would have got round and got away with it, but he would have been skewered by at least one or two other cars, and we would have had a lot bigger incident.
Yeah. Yeah, I was in two thoughts about that, because in my experience in sim racing, I normally just want the car that crashes in front to hold the car where it is and not be unpredictable. But it wasn't really unpredictable. He went off track. He didn't swerve and try and get the car around. Nothing like that. He was consistent in the way that he was getting out.
He got hit and the car spun round. He got hit into a spin, and as it spun round, he then let it continue off the circuit to get out of the way of the pack, versus spun and then was doing donuts trying to get back facing the right direction. And he wasn't being, let's be honest, he didn't have any control at that point.
Yeah, but that was just a thought that came like in that moment. Why didn't he hold his brakes?
Yeah, but then also you could say Daniel should have known that he was going to be spinning around, and he shouldn't have tried to gas it around the outside. Considering he caused it, he should have held the brakes and found a safer option round. So, Daniel.
Bad Daniel, and he should probably have, after the hit, he should have tried and keep it on track and just go slower, just in front of Magnussen. Would probably have been the best option for him. But yeah, he tried. He thought that Magnussen was going to stay there, so he just went off track and tried to pass him to lose as little time as he could. So yeah, you have that as well.
He could have been at the back of the grid and still racing, or done what he's done and be out the race.
Yeah, out the race immediately. So yeah, we had our first safety car. And in the end of the safety car, we had Russell P1, Hamilton P2, Verstappen P3, Perez P4, Norris P5, Leclerc P6, Sainz P7, Vettel P8, Gasly P9, and 10th, Mick Schumacher. He actually had a good sprint race. He didn't end up on the points, but he had a good sprint race, past like 8 cars or something like that.
Yeah, solid weekend from
there. Just it was unfortunate his qualifying, because mixed conditions are always hit and miss. You can have the right strategy and the wrong strategy, and he had the wrong one, because he was actually surprised to be but he was knocked out for like 3 seconds, but he was surprised that he got knocked out. So it was just one of those strange ones. But he was actually having a good race by this point. So in the end of lap 6, we had a restart, and then the carnage continued. Restart T1, Verstappen and Hamilton crash. I'm going to let you talk first because I might have a slightly unpopular opinion here. I don't know. We might actually think the same thing. So Verstappen tried to pass Hamilton on the outside of T1. So then when they go into T2, it's right-hander, just after the left-hander that is T1. They were basically side by side, and they hit basically.
It's so Lewis knows Max is on the outside. Excuse me. Is on the outside, and he's obviously not hitting him straight off the track. He didn't. He can argue he left room. He didn't really leave a lot of room. But then at the same time, on the head-on from Max's car, he's only about halfway along. Because of the nature of the corner, he's only about halfway alongside Lewis when they get to the right. He wasn't fully along. He goes fully alongside around the left-hander. Because of the change of the corner profile, Lewis goes ahead again before they go through the right. So technically it's his corner, and you want to go, Max should have known, or the driver in that position should know, this is a high-risk manoeuvre, because if it's probably better to back out and avoid an accident. He can clearly see that Lewis hasn't moved left to leave him a full car's width, so I'm going all the way across the curbings to keep this line, which is what he did, and the two collided. It's easy for Max to say he didn't leave me space, but he was alongside, then he wasn't alongside, then he was. It's a difficult corner, as we saw through the race. There's a lot of passing there, and you have to be fully through to be able to claim it, and I don't think he was enough. I don't think Lewis left him enough space, but I don't think it was 100% Lewis's fault.
And that's why I say it's a racing incident, and not a 5-second penalty for Max like it was.
Yeah, but they're having to go against him now because they say he's getting favouritism, so they're going to give him a few penalties when it doesn't matter because the championship is won. I joke.
Yeah, but the problem here is that this sets a precedent for the future. And one of the problems, and I heard this on another podcast, and I actually think it's true, we're getting into a blame, there has to be blame all the time for every incident right now. It's crazy. The racing incident is almost gone right now. So the smallest of touches, it's a penalty. So
I'm only thinking that they've gone for a 5-second penalty for Max is that he was the one that could have avoided the incident by backing out. That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, but if you say that, you could say that Hamilton could have left him room for one car, which he didn't, and that's a given.
No, I agree with you. Racing incident, I don't think, but it's the continuity we're having with FIA at the moment, which is the issue. Is we have a very extensive rule book that they seem to modify on a race by race basis.
Yeah.
To suit what their agenda for that race.
Yeah, actually true. I just don't like it.
Well, as we were talking, then you had another incident later in the race, which again was considered racing. I can't remember if a penalty was handed out though.
Which one?
Lando.
Yeah, it was.
See. And that I felt
that was
warranted.
Worse. That's yeah.
That warranted. That was a no. You shouldn't have done that. That was naughty.
Yeah. No, and I agree.
And, whereas Max was in that situation, Max was well past or in.
He was into C1. He was actually past Hamilton.
Yeah, that's what it was. He knew he was there, whereas the Charles one, he didn't know he was there. No. He was like, no, you don't do that.
Yeah.
And Lando knows better.
Yeah, and we're going to go on to that. So the only thing, the last thing that I want to say about that crash between Hamilton and Verstappen is that some people are saying that Max was going too fast anyway for them not to collide if Hamilton had left space, but I don't you can't actually.
You'll never know.
You'll never know unless Hamilton gives the space. So that tells you nothing. You can throw that in the garbage, basically.
It's the whole if, buts, and maybes. So it doesn't matter. It didn't happen, and we don't know. You can't say if.
Yeah. So that happened. 3 or 4 corners later, we have the uphill, the right-hander on the uphill, and it was basically, I think Leclerc was passing Norris. Yeah, was passing Norris on the outside, and Norris clipped actually. So great move where it's it was a great move, and Lando was on the inside and clipped the small inside curve, because there's actually a very small inside curve there. It doesn't look like it because I actually think it's green even. So there's actually a very small inside curve, but what it looked like to me was that he clipped that and the car understeered and he hit Leclerc on his right rear. So I think we already said what we think is. I'm a Lando fanboy, but it was his fault 100%. It was messy. It was a messy mistake.
We like Lando, and it was a move that was never going to come off, never going to happen. You just admit that Charles had done you on the outside with a stellar move, and get him, regroup, get him in the next corner.
I don't actually agree that he was trying to do something. I just think that he turned in too early, and it was a mistake basically, and clipped that curve and got caught off guard. I don't really think, because he shows the previous race that on the sprint race that he was more than okay with just letting the other cars go and do his own race, because he actually knows that McLaren is racing for a championship position. So I just think it was a mistake, but it was 5 seconds penalty. I agree 100%. They didn't even say nothing. Max complained a lot about the 5 seconds, but Lando said nothing basically, and it was his fault. So you got to own up to your mistakes, and he did. Which is good, and one more reason why I like him. Admitting fault is not a fault for a lack of a better understanding of English. Both Verstappen and Leclerc had to pit. Lando didn't, and Lewis didn't. It was after that pit stop that Max got the 5 seconds, because they have to investigate it. So it didn't serve the 5 seconds there. It served it later. The race was apparently ruined for both Leclerc and Max at this point. And it was just it was weird, because it was not like, let's say, Hamilton last year, or like Verstappen already did in previous years. It was a coming back race, but it was really progressive. It was not like we're at the back now, we have new tires and we're just going to pass everyone. It was like a progression in the when the race continued. So it was interesting to see. It was actually interesting to see. So Hamilton lost a couple of places. Like he went to P7, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, sounds about right.
Sainz passed Norris at this time in lap 7 after his hit. It seemed like in this first part after the incident that Norris got a little bit slow. I don't know what happened there, but he was passed a lot in this part of the race.
He was complaining about a steering issue. Or on the feed we were seeing, he was complaining about a steering wheel issue. But they never really went more in depth than he's saying he's got a steering wheel issue.
Yeah.
So
then Hamilton came through the field. He passed Norris, he passed Vettel, and then almost immediately Sainz pits for softs because the mediums were garbage.
Yep.
This was on lap 17, so every soft tire runner was more than happy with their tires, and Sainz with his mediums came in to change his tires on lap 17. Yeah, but actually he anticipated his pit stop because he had a tear off in his right rear brake duct.
Yeah, he did have to stop early.
Yeah, but maybe it was a blessing in disguise. Yeah. On lap 20, Russell says, "Let's go long." And lap 24, Perez pits for mediums. One thing that it's actually worth talking about now is one thing that would have been very good for Max's race if the whole incident didn't happen was because he used way less soft tires than everyone else. He had multiple sets of soft tires, more than every other car.
I think he had 3 sets, didn't he? Three new sets.
3 new sets of softs. So that part was very good for his strategy for the race. But yeah, it didn't have until lap 1. Not lap 1, but lap 6, but basically lap 1. Yeah. So yeah, then Max stopped again and serves the 5-second. And on lap 25, Russell stopped for mediums. He had softs. So the set of softs, like in the beginning of the race when you have the most amount of fuel, did 25 laps. It's crazy. Crazy.
It's almost like they painted the mediums as softs and the softs as mediums.
Yeah.
It's like they put the wrong compound in the wrong paint tin.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's what it does. That's what it looked like.
Yeah, because Hamilton actually pitted on lap 29. So even crazier. So yeah, then the race was kind of interesting, but on this part, but it tailed off a little bit. You had some battles on the midfield, but then George had a healthy lead. Sainz pitted again, this time for mediums. I don't know what Ferrari is saying. I don't think that they have the softs actually to like 2 new pairs of softs, but I don't know, with the evidence that we had from before, I don't know, because he pitted originally in lap 17 and he pitted again on lap 37, so he did 20 laps with his softs. Yeah, I don't know. I think they might have Ferrari missed a little bit. Yeah, they could have run more and do 1 less pit stop maybe, but I don't know. I do think that they got stuck in that. Yeah, mediums are going to last more than the softs thing and didn't read the race properly, probably.
No.
Yeah, so they weren't quick on their feet and do something different. So Perez then comes in on lap 48 for mediums, and then Hamilton got called into the pits where he complained a lot at this point. Yeah, because they pitted to cover Perez basically, And
it was the right thing to do.
Yeah, and it was the right thing to do. But his mind was already on Russell. Let's go get Russell. But yeah, it shouldn't. Yeah. I don't know.
You could tell by Bono's tone of his voice, the way he was like, no, and it's like, pit now. There was no discussion.
Yeah, and actually Russell pitted the lap after that, so it wasn't like Mercedes was giving a better strategy to Russell. They just pitted Hamilton first because he was the one who was closer to Paris.
More at risk,
more at risk. So yeah, he couldn't really complain about that.
They were favouring him.
Yeah,
funny that. But he still moans.
Yeah, funny that. So yeah, then Russell pits for softs. Actually, the other interesting thing is that the tires that they put on Hamilton's car were 6 or 7 laps old, and on Russell's 9 laps old. So yeah, I do. That we have different commentaries. You have different commentary than me because I have the Portuguese one. And I was screaming at the TV because they were saying, yeah, the tires already have 9 laps, but these are probably or practice or qualifying tires, so they have probably 1 or 2 flying laps, and the rest are slow laps. Yeah. So it's not really 9 laps.
No, but it's
not
Drive
the
to
same.
Survive.
Yeah.
It's good TV.
Don't start on Drive to Survive, because one of these days I'm going to throw something at the TV. We've talked about this on the podcast.
We won't go into it.
We won't go into the old manufactured drama Drive to Survive thing. That I'm going to backtrack a little bit. There was a funny story about Gunther Steiner after the qualifying, where he just told Drive to Survive to fuck off, because they didn't have any interest in them, and then right when they did that, I think the whole Drive to Survive crew just ran across the pit lane to go to the Haas pit box, and it was just no, let us.
No.
Yeah,
you only love us when we're winning.
Yeah. That's not true, because he's a Drive to Survive legend, basically. Gunther is. So yeah,
I know.
And all his swearing, but yeah, I know what I mean. So in lap 52, Norris loses power. The car went into anti-stall on the same corner where Magnussen and Ricciardo. No, not the same corner. The next 2 corners after that one. And he lost power just coming out of the corner and just went to the grass and pitted the car, just stopped the car there. So the race was under VSC at this point. And Sainz pitted the last time for softs at this point. But then they couldn't really disengage the car's gearbox, so it was stuck in first gear. I don't know what the problem was, but maybe a gearbox problem.
They couldn't have moved it. Couldn't move it, could they? So
no.
I don't know, because the way that they did eventually fight, whether they just didn't push the neutral button correctly or something, but because it suddenly started rolling again.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's because we have to think that these cars, I don't know what was the problem. I'm just shooting somewhere here, but might be that something was too hot and was seized up, and then it let go, something like that. I don't know. Something might have happened.
No, if it's that, then it'll still be let go. It won't.
Yeah.
Clutch button. It's more likely that it. I think the driver's supposed to push it, make sure the wheel's on, and put it in neutral before he walks away. Whether Lando did or didn't do that, then the first master on the scene, does he know to push the button to put it into neutral?
But they were there so much time without being able to.
Yeah, they are. But then you also have, everyone's got their first day sometime, and they might have just been it. They could have been that guy who's gone, oh, it's not moving. And then it took someone who's actually been there before to turn up and go, oh no, push the button, right, and we move it. But
yeah, I don't want to believe that. That on you are a Formula One steward like that, but I've heard some stories that are not.
They're not the. It's not the same mechanics that travel around to do things. It's marshals.
Yeah, marshals. Yeah.
The marshals are provided, and let's not forget the marshals are all there voluntary. And you know, you can still be your first day and be a Grand Prix marshal on a corner.
Yeah, I'm going to be the next marshal in Silverstone. I don't know. No, Barcelona is closer. Okay.
I think just a bit.
Yeah. So we went into a complete safety car on lap 55 because it took 3 laps for them to realize that it was going nowhere. So yeah, one thing that I have to ask you, because we've had all of these problems with safety cars and tractors on track and all that stuff, shouldn't because I watched we had the Le Mans Series race at Bahrain this weekend, and Code 80 is just amazing, an amazing tool. Shouldn't they just bring that to Formula One?
Well, that's a VSC.
Yeah, but the VSC is different because you're not always traveling at the same speed, so there's a delta. Code 80, you literally pass a different pit lane speed limiter. It's a different button, so one just goes to 60, which is the pit lane speed limit, and the other goes to the 80 kilometers per hour limit, and there's a constant speed there. I know why people like the Delta because of the closeness of the cars and all that, but it seems to be a lot more safe because you actually know how the cars are traveling.
The thing is, the Delta, they shouldn't be traveling that faster compared to another car. So it's not like you're going to have one car coming through.
I'm not talking between cars. I'm talking between the car that it's traveling and the marshals on track or something like that.
I don't think it'll make much difference being one or the other, because I don't think F1 don't seem to want to put marshals on the track with cars not behind a full safety car, so they have that window to work. I don't know why, because obviously WEC and all the other events.
So simple. That's why I'm asking, because it's so simple on the WEC.
Because it's F1.
I don't know.
That's the only thing you can put it down. They don't want to do it, and like you say, after recent events, going back to Bianchi, and then the most recent one in Japan, and vehicles on the track. Again, it's the FIA, because the FIA are not notifying the teams that there is a recovery vehicle on the track.
Yeah, it's crazy.
For the teams, and then even if they relate it to the teams and the teams relate to their drivers, but they're not telling them, which is, I can understand why the drivers and the teams are getting irate about it, because safety-wise, it is dreadful. At least in WEC, you know.
Yeah. But that's why I ask, because when you watch a WEC race and you watch how the race control, and it's actually Eduardo Freitas, the same guy that everyone vilified as being a horrible person for the safety, and he's actually one of the most safety conscious race directors that there is. He's actually a marshal himself, so it runs so smoothly on the WEC. That's why I don't know.
It's because he doesn't fit the public mold that the public want for a race director. He doesn't fit the F1 mold. He doesn't exactly.
He's basically a no nonsense kind of guy that is his race, and this is going to go like this, and you're going to do what I say. And in the WEC, every driver knows that he has to respect the race director, and he has to slow down when he says you have to slow down, and you have a tractor on track, you slow down. On F1, there's always this kind of push to gain. I don't know.
Well, we can gain some tenths here, we can gain some tenths there, and it's the nature of F1, and it's why he was never going to survive as an F1 race director, because of his zero tolerance.
Yeah,
they all claim they want zero tolerance, but when you give it to them, they moan because they can't extract a performance benefit over their rivals.
Yeah, the whole piercing thing, that it pissed me off the way people were talking about it, because I know how Eduardo likes to do it, and the truth is that if he wasn't Hamilton and he turned with those piercings to a track day in Great Britain, in the United Kingdom, it's disallowed. So I'm sure they're not going to rummage through his bits to look if there's a piercing there, but it's actually disallowed there. So I don't get why he couldn't just, and then this turns into a drama, the whole Drive to Survive drama that...
It's what F1 has become, because, let's be honest, a large proportion of the now fan base of F1 are because of Drive to Survive. There's a lot of people that have now come to the sport, and the style of fan has changed because they've seen it on Netflix. They've got involved, and there's also your political element with Hamilton and his BLM protests that he's been doing. And so you're getting a different type of fan to F1. They're not purely coming to watch. I mean, I've watched my first Grand Prix I went to was in '92 at Silverstone, that I watched live, and I've been to pretty much every Grand Prix at Silverstone, I think bar 2 or 3 since. I go because I like watching the WEC and that, and I watch what the cars are doing, how the cars are behaving, how the drivers are driving them, trying to preempt the team strategies and try to guess what they're doing to pretend you're as clever as an F1 engineer for a few seconds. And the technology and how it's like, looking at that again, that's just incredible.
Yeah,
how that works. And a lot of the other fans now are coming to it because they want to see Lewis Hamilton. They don't want to see him drive a car. They want to see a picture of Lewis Hamilton with his dog wearing a purple jumpsuit or some shit like that.
Yeah.
And that's where the sport is changing, and that's where the likes of Freitas doesn't fit in with the narrative of, let's not forget, Formula One is now owned by Americans, and NASCAR is well known throughout the world, and NASCAR openly tell it is not about the race, it is about the show for the fans. That whole series is constructed, derived, and angled to put on a show. There is a race winner at the end of it and a champion at the end of the season, but they don't give two hoots who it is. Yeah. Whether it's a Red Bull or whoever, it's about filling 150,000 seater oval stadiums, road courses, 34 races a year. It is a business. It is not a sport. And that is the same sort of people that own Formula One now. We're going to Vegas. We're going to all the American races where you have pit lane walkabouts and you grid people on the grid, and there are people in the grid that don't care. Yeah, they don't know. They don't want to be. But
I said something that was really bad. I said shouldn't be there because I was understanding wrongly what you were saying. I thought you were going to talk about all of the track, basically pit lane invasion that we had on Mexico. That was a bit too much, I think, because drivers couldn't get to their motorhomes and to the pits to go to their sessions. It was a little bit crazy. I think you should bring that back just a little bit.
So that's it. I think that's the problem with Formula One at the moment, and the way it's going is I don't want to say it's been Americanified, but it's becoming more about the show than it is about the race.
Yeah. I agree with you, and I the thing is, I'm let's face it, I've been a supporter of sprint races and the Americanification, or whatever how the hell you say that, of Formula One. I have zero problem with that. I've been watching Formula One since I was a little kid, so I'm a little bit younger than you, but I've been watching it a long time now. So and I have no problem with that. When safety and all that stuff is concerned, I would still like for it to be a little bit more well regulated. Just that. But I have.
Yeah, and I agree with you on the Code 80s. It would not be very difficult at all for them to turn around to the teams and go, VSC equals, you have to have a mappable button. However you do it, you have to have a pit lane speed limiter set to 100 Ks, 80 Ks, pick your speed, and whatever it be. And as soon as we go, they don't have to do the Freitas 3, 2, 1. They just need to go, because they can tell the teams off air.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, safety car, virtual safety car limit.
But I actually like to hear it on the television. I think it's something.
But if they didn't want to, they could do it that way.
Yeah, I get it.
I mean, the technology, the teams could turn it on more than likely from the pits. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's one of the. It wouldn't be hard to implement. I just don't think they'll do it, because it's also F1 is supposed to be the best, and they don't want to admit that they're taking stuff from World Endurance sports cars, which are the little brother. We're not as good as us.
Or admit that there are drivers in the WC that are better than some F1 drivers.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's a lot of arrogant pride involved with Formula One.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, that even goes as far as to, let's go back to super license.
Yeah.
Arrogant thing. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and I get what you said about Freitas, and I actually thought that, and I know, because we have a friend of the podcast that knows Eduardo personally for a long time, because Eduardo was a track marshal at Estoril when he started. And he's still a track marshal. He sometimes does the Le Mans Classic, which is the race 1 week before or 2 weeks before Le Mans, where they race the classic cars around Le Mans, the old Group C and all those cars, and he actually goes there and marshals there. So yeah, he's a very conscious person about safety and all that stuff. But I have said that it wouldn't really fit the Formula One circus, and I was right and you were right. And as much as the older drivers like Vettel and Hamilton say that they miss Charlie Whiting and how he did, I don't really think that Charlie fitted as well the current day race director role.
No.
So because Charlie was a no nonsense kind of guy as well, and
he was exactly the same mold as Eduardo. And then I suppose it's just because of Drive to Survive and the whole Massey situation, have they now got their public persona of what a race director should be, and that's what they're trying to continue with and keep the continuity, because of it's good for the TV, it's good for the show.
Yeah, and I get that part. I might not completely like it, but I don't like it at all. I don't like it as well. I was trying to be polite, but yeah, I'm not going to stop watching F1 because of that. Unless they start doing some silly stuff. I'm not going to.
The only one I've said that I heard recently, and if it happens, I will. You won't need me on the podcast. I won't watch it. Is at the Vegas launch event, promo event before São Paulo. They had, I think, Mercedes driving around.
Lights behind the
and
car.
And the neon lights.
Oh no!
And then Drive to Survive sort of groupies have put in a petition saying that they want all the cars for the Vegas race to have lights under there for their team. And I know it's just someone being funny in position, but if they did something like that, I will turn the remote control off then and then, because that's a fucking joke. It is like, I mean, that takes Need for Speed to a whole new level. Fuck that. No.
No.
I can't see them doing it, but I just
it's weight
in
on
the back
car.
of my head, I'm like, back of my head when they go, yeah, you have to do that. I'm like, I'm out. I'm out, and we'll turn this into the bump, draft and pray IndyCar and NASCAR program.
Yeah. If they do that on the race, if they do that, I'm not going to do it. You're not going to do it. So we'll leave Rui to do the F1 coverage.
Yeah, Rui can do F1 and we'll do NASCAR.
Yeah. I would much rather have a stage race like we joked about privately, like they do on NASCAR. Yeah. I would love that much more than neon lights on a Formula 1 car. No, screw that. So let's get back to the race. So, yeah. Bring Code 80 rules to Formula 1, please. It's simple and it works, and you'll never have another Gasly throwing a tantrum because there's a tractor on track. Yeah. So, when we got back to action, we had Russell P1, Hamilton P2, Perez P3, Sainz P4 with new softs. All of the other drivers had used wherever tires they had. Perez had mediums and the rest had softs. Then Bottas, he was having a very good race and was one of the drivers that was completely screwed by the safety car. Completely, his race was basically screwed by that. Then we had Leclerc, Vettel, Ocon, Alonso, and Verstappen. That's our P10. So because Bottas was way in front of everyone else that's behind him, so they all caught up to him. The same for Russell. He had a good advantage on Hamilton before the safety car. He had like almost 5 seconds on Hamilton.
Yeah, I think it was around 6 odd seconds, wasn't it?
Yeah. So there was a possibility here that Sainz could actually win the race because he had new soft tires. In our minds as well, at least. So yeah, and then my second rant of the day. Before the race started, they just let pass the lapped cars like usual, but they let both Williams, but they let poor Yuki Tsunoda in the middle of all of the other cars, and actually Latifi passed Tsunoda. Because of that, it's a mess. I know the explanation that the FIA gave, that basically was because Yuki stopped when the safety car came out. He unlapped himself just on that part, but was actually lapped again. Just when he pitted, so that activated the automatic system. But this shouldn't really happen. Let's not kid ourselves. No,
not in this day and age.
No. That's not sporting at all, and we all saw that happening on the TV. And if the race director didn't see that and didn't act on that immediately, I don't know. It's not a good look for the FIA. Let's put it like this. It was probably the thing that enraged me the most about the entire weekend. Because you're basically making a decision that is. I know it was not for points, but it was for a race position.
Irrelevant.
That's irrelevant. It was for a race position, and that's way worse than what happened in Abu Dhabi last year, to be honest, because it's directly putting a guy in front of the other. It's a mess.
Yeah, just I mean that's the the key phrase for the FIA at the moment. The FIA is a mess.
Yeah, and this one I was shouting at the TV. Not because it made any difference to the race, and actually Tsunoda was amazing on the restart. Amazing. He just got out of everyone's way and let them all pass instead of just keeping his position and maybe messing a little bit with the guys that were behind him, which he had the right to do that because he has 3 corners to let them pass, so he could have actually let everyone pass on the next straight, but no, on the start finish straight it pulled off to the left and let everyone pass. So yeah, he has my sympathy and respect for what it is on Sunday, and it was a messy situation, and I want something to be done about it.
He handled it well, didn't he?
Yeah. Yuki Tsunoda, you have a big fan here just for what you did. I already liked Yuki, but this was amazing. So we're going to continue because I know you have to go, and we have one big topic to talk about. So it all turned out that Hamilton couldn't catch George. George did an amazing race and was able to keep Hamilton outside of the DRS position. Then, so we had George, we had Hamilton, we had Sainz and Leclerc. Leclerc asked for Sainz's position, but Ferrari basically told him no.
I mean that was a strong ask.
Yeah, to give up a podium position.
If it was to win the championship there and then, yeah. No, you won't do that.
Bad form. For more 2 points for the second place of the championship and risk losing a place behind to Alonso. Alonso was on new tires and they passed Perez and he was P5 at this point. And then we had Perez and Verstappen. And basically Red Bull told Perez to let Verstappen pass to try and get points away from Alonso and Leclerc. I didn't really understand that because there was no point because he would lose more points anyway. But then when he couldn't even get to Alonso, he refused to give his position back to Perez like it was supposed to. Your thoughts on this?
He's a shit. That's my views. It's just, let's be honest, Max is not a team player in any sense of the word, and Sunday proved that without doubt.
Yeah.
There's been comparisons with Seb and Multi 21.
No,
and
way
it was
worse.
That was for the win for a championship. Different situation. For was it 5th place? Sixth place, and they've let him through to try and help Checo. And I mean, what Checo's done for him through. Let's be honest, Checo signed there, and his contract will say he's the number 2 driver. He has to move aside. No doubt of that. There's no doubt that it will be contracted. He's on what I reported 10 million somewhere. Like, he'll be on good money, and he's there, and he knows he's the number 2 driver. That's all fair enough.
Yeah.
And he's done that job better than any other Red Bull driver, in my opinion, ever.
Yeah.
I don't think there's been a better number 2 who is openly happy with being number 2. And the fact that after everything he's done to help Max win 2 championships, he won't let him finish second in the championship because of 6th place. Yeah. It's just a joke. And the fact that Red Bull have stated that they've never had a 1-2 in the Drivers' Championship and that's their goal.
Yeah.
This is the team. It's not like he's just trying to wind up Checo. He's now pissing the team off. So.
Yeah, and actually, Horner came on the radio to apologize to Checo. And for those of you that are going to talk about Monaco, don't even start. Even if he crashed on purpose, it was for him. I mean, Max should be a big enough boy to just dust that off.
But that was 2 years ago.
No. This year.
It was this year's one, was it? Yeah, it's yeah.
This didn't even just relate to Checo being second place. It was because Red Bull could actually do something that few teams did. In the third year of complete dominance, even in the second place standings on the driver standings. So yeah, it was.
It's. Let's not forget, Max is in Formula One because of Red Bull.
Yeah,
100%. He's the only reason he's there is because of them. And you would have think he would have just gone, yeah, no problem. His championship's done.
Yeah.
He's getting his 40 million a year. He's happy. He's winning. He's now just I know he wants to win the races and get more than everyone else in a single season.
He already has.
But okay, he wants to win more. You know, they want to. But he wasn't going to win it.
No.
It was six. It was nothing. It was just a petulant little kid showing his true colours. It was the equivalent of standing next to the car, stomping his feet.
Yeah. Very true. And
as we both have toddlers, we know.
Yeah.
And that's what it was.
If it was my kid doing something like this, yeah.
Yeah, it was a tantrum. It was a form of a tantrum, and just no.
Yeah, but the thing is, like you said, Sergio has his contract. Let's not kid ourselves. It's Max's team. He's a superstar. He's their driver for the future.
Yeah, but how much more would people like him?
Yeah, I don't think he cares. That's the thing. Max, I don't think he cares, but Red Bull should care a little bit more. It's their brand.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah.
It was I don't think it was. It'd be interesting after Horner's comments of we're going into the last race with the sole intention of getting Checo second in the Drivers' Championship. It'd be interesting to see how this pans out.
I've heard that Max said that this was payback done for Monaco, and now he will help him. But
Is he gonna, if he's leading in Checo second, is he going to pull off?
No.
Is he going to let him win it?
Exactly. No. And let's be honest, if Checo is in second and Max is in first, he wins the second place because him and Leclerc are going on the same point. So we will have that excuse at least. So what can Verstappen do now? What is he going to crash Leclerc? Is he going to go in front of Leclerc and back him up? He's not going to do that. No. Any of those.
No, so. He'll just go in same as every other weekend, go and try and win it, and he won't care what Checo's doing. Let's be honest.
No. So Horner's comments are basically hollow. So because I don't want to leave it like this, I'll just like to congratulate our new Grand Prix winner, George Russell. Because solid weekend. People are only talking about Verstappen and Perez, but the big news of the weekend is that George completely dominated the weekend. Just didn't get that pole position, but he won both races. Did an amazing job. Had the pace on Hamilton. Had the tire life on Hamilton. Had everything. He did basically almost everything right. So yeah, very impressive.
It's solid weekend and very happy with how he went.
Yeah. Then I do like to see something like this happening because it's a new winner, another new winner this year, and very nice to see. And
there's one other stat from the weekend which I particularly like. Is currently K-Mag has more poles than Lewis Hamilton.
this year. Yeah. I didn't think about that. Yeah.
I like that one.
Yeah. And okay, I wasn't going to do it. I was going to be a good boy, but I'm going to do it anyway. How pissed off did Hamilton look after the race that it wasn't him who gave Mercedes their win this season?
That's the thing, is they were talking at the start of the season, we'll be lucky if we win a race. We'll be like, so the fact that they've got to the position of winning a race is fair play to Mercedes. That's some good work. But whilst watching it, I said to my wife, who said, wouldn't it be great that George wins it and not Lewis? And yeah, thunder.
Yeah, he looked pissed off when he kind of congratulated Russell and all that stuff, but you could, like, the first impression that I got from him was that he was pissed not to be him, the one winning. It was
but he's the golden child, so he wants to win everything. But yeah, it was good to see.
Yeah. So yeah, much congratulations to Mercedes and George. Very nice weekend from them. A 1-2 for Mercedes, a first win of the season. It was actually a first sprint win and first Grand Prix win. An amazing showing from both the team and the driver. Very good. Now they are 19 points ahead of Ferrari, so they gained 21 points from them, because George actually did the fastest lap too, so it was really impressive. So they go into the last race ahead of just 19 points behind Ferrari, with a kind of a chance if something happens to one of the Ferraris or if they dominate again. I don't think that they're going to be as competitive in Abu Dhabi. I think the Red Bulls are going to be mega there because you have those long straights, and that seems to favor Red Bull a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I don't believe the theory that Red Bull is sandbagging because of the whole budget thing. I don't believe that. I just believe that they weren't able to get everything out of the car this weekend.
Yeah, they just weren't on the pace. Simple.
Yeah. So yeah, it's going to be interesting last race to see who gets second place in both championships, and fourth place. I think it's done because now Alpine is 19 points ahead McLaren, and even if McLaren are more competitive than Alpine, there's a few lesser gap of points between places on the back end of the top 10, so it's basically done unless the Alpines crash into each other and they have a good. Both McLarens have a very good race.
Anything's possible still.
Yeah. Not as many stuff is possible because Masi isn't there.
Get in trouble.
But yeah, no, I am a Messi. I sympathize with Messi, and I've said this on the podcast, so people can't blame me of being a Messi hater. I'm far away from that. So let's go. Thank you for being here with us. We're going to cover the WEC some other time when the F1 season is over, because we concentrate more on F1. But it was a good episode, a big one for our standards. And we're shortening it a little bit, but yeah, we're going to talk about some of this stuff a little bit more in the coming weeks. Thank you for watching. Follow us, Bump Draft Pray, in any social media that you use. Our email is bdappodcast@gmail.com if you have any questions. I've been Pedro Barbosa. Look for me on Twitter, where I don't post, and can look for Earl at Earl Goddard on Twitter. And if you want to join our league, see the like the show notes and all that stuff. We have an iRacing league and all that stuff. It's been very, very entertaining. We're going to talk about that later as well. So yeah, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, see you later.
Draft and Pray is an independent podcast, and the music was by Letting Punks Know.